and players smiling.
But Michael Jordan is not only the best basketball player, but he's the most exciting basketball player to ever play.
Tatum fires away, pumps it in, 51 for Jason Tatum.
The Big Three NBA podcast is powered by Prizepicks.
Hello, folks. Welcome to another edition of the Big Three NBA podcast. I am joined this week, I being A-Sharp Blakely, I am joined this week by the man, the myth, the legend, James Edwards III of The Athletic. What's going on, James?
Nothing much, Rod. Good to see you, man. Appreciate you having me back on.
Absolutely. It's that time of year, man. Listen, man, the playoffs right around the corner, and we got to get all the big dogs out there for folks to know. And you are definitely one of the big dogs in the game. We're just going to jump right into it, man. It's playoff time, as I mentioned, and pairings are starting to kind of filter out a little bit. You know, the Celtics and the Cleveland Cavaliers, they're waiting for the teams to emerge from the play-in format, whereas the Knicks looking like they're going to be the number 3 seed, and they'll face either Indiana, Detroit, or Milwaukee. I anticipate they'll be the number 3 seed for lots of reasons. First and foremost, record-wise, that's where they're at. And I did something this morning, James, that kind of solidifies my belief they're going to be the number 3 seed. In terms of losses at home, they have the third fewest losses. In terms of losses on the road, they have the third fewest losses. So they're pretty much I feel good about them as a number 3. But the teams that I mentioned earlier, Indiana, Detroit, Milwaukee, who do you see as being the best matchup for the Knicks as far as a first-round opponent that they can get past?
Definitely Milwaukee. The way that kind of Boston and Cleveland have had their way with the Knicks is the same way that the Knicks have had their way with Milwaukee. No game has been relatively close. The type of stuff that Milwaukee likes to give teams on defense are the stuff the Knicks like. That's why Jalen Brunson is able to have such big games. He can get into the mid-range and knock those shots down. Mikal Bridges can knock those shots down in the mid-range. And also just don't think Milwaukee really has the depth or the hunger it's seen this year that some of the other teams will have in terms of Indiana and Detroit. So I think if the Knicks could handpick their opponent, I think most people in the organization would want the Bucks just based on how the regular season has gone. Could some want the Pistons just because of the inexperience? I'm sure there is, but the Pistons are 2-1 against the Knicks this year. So it hasn't been necessarily clean swimming for the Knicks, and both of those wins for Detroit were in the Garden. So it's a team that Detroit team is feisty. They're tough. They got nothing to lose. And while the Bucks kind of just seem like they're waiting for this season to end.
Yeah, and for you, I would imagine a little bit of bittersweet if the Knicks play the Pistons first round, having been covering the Pistons for many of those, let's just call them lean years in Detroit.
Yeah.
What have you seen with them this year that's dramatically different, from afar from what you saw up close and personal with them when you covered the team?
Yeah, I don't know if there's a ton dramatically different other than JB Bickerstaff's kind of his presence, his coaching philosophies, the way that he's really rallied the troops. I think that has been a significant upgrade over the recent year. And then you look at Cade has always been really good. I think last year people didn't pay attention because of how bad they were. Cade was really good, specifically the second half of last year. Isaiah Stewart, in my eyes, and now a lot of people are starting to take notice, has been one of the best rim protectors in basketball, one of the best, most versatile defenders in basketball. He's been really good this year. Asar Thompson is a beast. They've added veterans. I think Malik Beasley could be considered. He should be considered along with Peyton Pritchard for Sixth Man of the Year. I think those two will be the finalists. DeAndre Hunter has something to say about that as well. But I think Malik Beasley was probably the best signing of last offseason when you look at how cheap the Pistons got him and the impact he's had. Tobias Harris has been more than solid for them on the floor and then as a leader in the locker room. So they added some capable veterans. The young players have kind of become what Troy Weaver thought they would when he drafted them. So credit to, I think, Troy in terms of his talent evaluation. He's no longer there, obviously. But I think the coaching upgrade has been significant for this group. This seems to have a guy that they all rally behind.
Yeah, and to JB's credit, he I think came into that job certainly with a little bit of an edge, how things ended in Cleveland, which a lot of us are still kind of shaking our heads about that one. But that edge, I think, really has translated to the way that team plays. They play hard, man. I mean, the games that they played against Detroit, one of the things people in Boston used to say that, man, if Detroit played as hard against everyone else as they do against Boston, they'd be a pretty good team. And I thought this year, pretty much every time I saw them play, they play with a certain nastiness. Stewart has been one of my faves for a long time because he reminds me of the kind of the when the Pistons were good, frankly, the kind of players that they had.
Yeah.
So
plays his ass off every second.
Yeah. And you can't really put a value on having guys like that in your locker room and on the floor for you. They have a way of impacting the game even when the ball isn't in their hands or calls are being made for them.
And I don't think people know, and I know Isaiah Stewart as well as a reporter can know a player, and just a great guy. Like, people don't know that. Like, the reason it works for him in Detroit is because he's nasty on the floor. But he is a great – anybody that's ever been around him will never have a bad word to say. And it's not because they're afraid to get hit. It's because he's genuinely one of the nicest people that I've come across in my 9 years covering the NBA.
Yeah, absolutely. And in some respects, he does remind me of a not quite on that level, but Ben Wallace type of guy that has this very intimidating presence when you see him on the court. But for those of us who get to know players like that off the court, complete 180. He's not nearly, you're not nearly as fearful off the court when you're talking to him as some of his opponents are when he's on the court. So
for sure.
You had touched on earlier about JB Bickerstaff. I want to talk about another JB, Jalen Brunson, who has been just an absolute breath of fresh air for Knicks fans. Really embodies a lot of what that organization at least wants people to believe is kind of their ethos, so to speak. And he's missed some games here. And it looks like he's on the verge of coming back. What's the latest on JB and his possible return to the Knicks lineup?
Yeah, we're recording this obviously on Saturday. They play the Hawks today. He practiced, to our knowledge, for the first time on Friday. So it feels like, and the sentiment has been that he's going to return this weekend. The question is it Saturday against Atlanta? Is it Sunday back in New York against Phoenix? We'll see here in a few hours. I'm curious. My gut tells me that they have him return Sunday in New York against the Suns. I can't imagine he's cleared for back-to-backs coming off an ankle injury. He's missed basically a month. So you play him Sunday. They have the off day Monday. Then they play again Tuesday. So he gets a day of rest. But, yeah, I don't know. I'm very curious to see which day it is. Do you want to say, hey, Jalen, welcome back. Here's Dyson Daniels. I don't know if that's wise for a guy coming off an ankle injury, even though Jalen has had his way with Dyson Daniels last time they played. They have a really good back and forth between those two. But my gut is Sunday, but we'll see. It could easily be today.
I could absolutely see it being Sunday. To be honest, I would be more surprised if it's not Sunday, simply because you are playing the Suns. And for those who follow the Celtics, we saw what the Suns look like without KD. And with KD, it ain't pretty. And without KD, it is really just an absolute hot mess. When we saw them play the Celtics earlier this year in Phoenix, it was maybe one of the worst defensive showings I've seen for a team that supposedly is fighting for a playoff berth. And then seeing them the other day in Boston, it wasn't any better. At least without KD, you had the benefit of saying, we didn't have KD, but my goodness, they are a hot mess.
Yeah, they need a vibe change very quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing about Jalen, he's at that point where he's definitely one of the stars of the league. I don't think there's any question about that. How concerning is it for the Knicks that he won't have a ton of time before he returns until the playoffs start? Because really, you're looking at maybe 3 or 4 games he might get in before the playoffs. Is there enough time for him to kind of get back into a flow and rhythm before the playoffs start?
I think so. So he needs, and I think we'll talk about this in a little bit, he needs 4 games to hit the 65 game mark. So I think that is, while he said that the main reason he's ready to come back is he's healthy and he wants to help this team be the best version of itself. He also said individually, I want to make sure I hit the 65 game mark. So that's something that he hopes to do. In terms of can he find a rhythm? That's always the question. I mean, this Knicks team all season long has talked about, we want to make sure we're playing our best basketball at the end. And while they haven't really been as decimated with injuries as it may seem like basically from the start of the season to like February, I think, like Mitchell Robinson was really the only one that was consistently out.
Right.
They've had some stuff since then, but they haven't really been. I mean, maybe they've been the best version of the Knicks, and we just are waiting for more. But they haven't really played their best basketball or great basketball consistently since the turn of the calendar year. So they do have a chance to do that with Jalen coming back, with Mitch now back. It looks like Campaign and Deuce McBride are close to coming back as well. Jalen is a guy who is very much, he's, again, one of the best players in the NBA. He doesn't necessarily strike me as a rhythm player because he plays to his own rhythm. But with that, an ankle injury for how he plays, I'm very interested. He's a lot of herky jerky, a lot of start and stop, a lot of torque on that ankle. So I'm curious to see how he handles that, and if there's any like kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, like trickle down of the injury as he plays more games. Obviously, practice and stuff, like you get a little bit of a test, but you play 4 games, 3 games in a week, that might be a little different. So I'm curious to see how it plays. And they don't have many easy games left. Like Atlanta's not an easy game. They're fighting for playoffs. The Suns are fighting for their playoff lives. They have Boston still. They have Cleveland still. Like, I imagine those 2 teams might get close to sitting guys, but I don't know that. They have Detroit still. And then they end the year against Brooklyn. So, I mean, only one of those teams is bad, I would say.
Right.
A few of them are okay, and then the others are good. So it kind of just depends on how lucky they get with guys sitting, and if Tibbs sits guys. But if he's trying to find a rhythm, maybe he doesn't sit guys.
Yeah, and the other thing too, that and you've seen enough of the league to know this, that when a guy's coming back from injury, guys are going to test him right out the jump. Can he move laterally? Can he get back defensively? Where's his conditioning at? Is he able to knock down shots the way we've seen him in the past? And so then you've got that added dynamic of, guys really targeting you more so than they already do. How do you see Jalen, handling all of this stuff? Because check me if I'm wrong on this, but Jalen hasn't been out as a Knick for this long of a period of time before, right?
No, he hasn't. I've actually talked to people about that, and to me, it seems like he's really attacked his rehab and opportunities to get back. He's been on the bench with the team. Certain players, he's been in their ear. He's not the most rah-rah leader. He's more of a lead by example type guy, but I definitely think we talked to him the other day. He's chomping at the bit to get back. And that's something I want to talk to him a little bit more in depth about here once he returns and things of that nature. But he's certainly he's so competitive. He does not like that he's missed this many games, and especially this late in the season. But also with that, he's gotten a month's rest too. And I don't want to say rest like you're rehabbing and all that stuff, but he hasn't gone through the rigors of an NBA schedule here for about a month, and maybe that's a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we go any further, I just want to give a quick shout out to our good friends at Prizepicks. Springtime is here and baseball season is officially underway. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your Prizepicks lineup, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs. Take your pick of more or less for your shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash today. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prizepicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for your shot to win up to 1,000 times cash. Run your game all season long on Prizepicks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. It's the best place to win cash while watching your favorite players. They have weekly promotions like Taco Tuesday, where you get discounts on select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value. Prizepicks also invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money, even if one of your picks doesn't hit. You want in? Here's what you do. You download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's use the code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prizepicks, run your game. And James, we are going to run our game and continue talking about the man, the myth, and the legend, Jalen Brunson. Now, if he's, when he does return, I don't think anyone should expect him to just be dominant from day one. So typically, there's usually a guy or two that kind of helps ease that transition picks up a little bit of the slack to make so that the weight that he's carrying from day one isn't as heavy. Who do you see as some of the guys or the guy that can kind of hold things down a little bit as Jalen reacclimates himself to being Jalen?
Yeah, it's been OG Annuoby while he's been out. He's been on a tear. I mean, both sides of the ball. Offensively, he's getting to the rim Josh Hart called him. He said he remembered he was a 6'8", 245-pound demon. He's just getting to the rim at will, getting to the free throw line, hitting his threes. And that's going to be the biggest adjustment, I think, when Jalen comes back, is OG's clearly unlocked something. He's in different spots of the floor with Jalen out. How do they try to kind of implement some of those things when Jalen does return? Because he really did, OG that is, like really did find something over this last 3-4 weeks. So maybe they lean on him again and try to find that balance early on. Just Jalen does his stuff as he tries to get it kind of back into the flow of things, and then maybe takes a back seat to OG and they run some stuff for him. So that guy has been absolutely killing it, and I'm very fascinated to see how his offensive production looks when Jalen returns.
Yeah, I had a chance to spend some time with OG back when he was in Toronto before, when Toronto was still one of the better teams. And the thing that I recognize about OG, and I don't know how that has translated in New York, but he was a young man that was extremely confident in his ability to be a game changer. And while he understood that there was a pecking order, he carried himself, at least in my engagements with him, as if it's just a matter of time before I'm going to be that guy. And I'm just curious, how has he been with you all in New York? I mean, do you get that sense, or is he a little bit more outwardly humble, or what's your take on OG?
I think when he's speaking publicly, like he does he's very much like he's a do whatever you have to do to help the team win type guy.
Right.
But there are things every now and then where it's like you do get the sense that he feels like he can be one of those guys in this league. And I feel like every player should feel that way. And if you don't feel that way, then there's something wrong with you. Right. So the fact that OG carries himself, he is very humble and he can be quiet at times, but you hear him say things here and there where it's like I'm not just a defender, I'm a two-way player, like, right. And that's how he should think, and that's how he should be. And I think this last month he's been able to show that for people who always kind of questioned him or put him in a box, that there is more that he can do. And credit to him too. This is the healthiest he's been. It's the most minutes he's ever played. He's going to hit over 70 games. He's been fantastic this year.
Yeah, and he just has the perfect prototype body for this, where we are at as far as the league is concerned. I mean, 6'8"-ish, 240-ish. I mean, physically very can hold his own on the block as well as on the wing, and he has good lateral quickness, can knock down shots. There's a lot to like about the OG profile at both ends of the floor, and it really is good to see him kind of showcasing that with a little more consistency, because as you pointed out, James, health is such a big deal for obviously any player, but particularly for him when it hasn't always been something that is a positive when you talk about OG.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree. And he's had some fluky injuries in the past. Obviously not things you can't control, half that stuff, but he's put in the work behind the scenes. He's taking care of his body. He's gotten stronger as the season's gone on. And he talks about how important that is. Like, the goal is to play your best basketball going into the playoffs and in the playoffs. And he's done that. So credit to him for the work he puts in. I don't think anybody has ever questioned the type of worker he is. He's just been, he's been as solid as they come for this team this year. He's had, obviously, like all NBA players, ups and downs throughout the year. But I would say for the most part, there might be Knicks fans who tell you he's been their second best player this season.
And that's where I wanted to go, because as we're talking, I'm thinking, like, wait a minute, we've been talking for a hot minute here, and we haven't said a word about Karl-Anthony Towns, who was, supposed to be like, maybe certainly not the face of the franchise. That's Jalen, but pretty damn close. How would you evaluate his play this season for the Knicks?
Yeah, I think offensively, like in totality, he's been exactly what you would expect from Cat. one of the best floor spacers, one of the best scorers from the big man position. He's done all that. He's turned his rebounding back up now that he's no longer playing next to a traditional center like he was with Rudy Gobert. He's been one of the elite rebounders in the NBA, so credit to him. But he's also like struggled defensively, and that's the thing. Like, people like to kind of pour on to Cat with that stuff, and it's like, I understand it, but he is what he is, and he was what he was when the Knicks traded for him.
Right.
You knew that he was an elite offensive talent, one of the best offensive big men the game has seen, and you knew that he had some limitations defensively. So they made the trade knowing that. They're obviously, they've tinkered with Mitch and Cat together. They haven't played it in too many substantial moments. Maybe that's a little wrinkle they pull out in the playoffs or something. But certainly, like, he's been really good offensively. And defensively, he's struggled. Like, he's been Cat. And I think if you've watched him over the years, you knew exactly what you were going to get. And he's done that. And I think the fact that he's upped his rebounding has been a pleasant surprise for a lot of people.
Yeah. And the thing I think a lot of people also forget is that, one of the key bigs that went out in this trade was Julius Randle. And Julius wasn't exactly, a lockdown defender himself.
Mm-hmm.
Far from it.
Yeah.
So that's why the knocks on Cat's defense, I'm just like, you do realize what you gave up to get him. And you do realize you didn't give up, Tim Duncan. You didn't give up, an all NBA defender.
Right.
And so why would you expect the guy to replace, Julius to be an all NBA type defender? I don't get that.
I think a lot of people, it's that Julius was more of the 4 and that he had Mitch next to him. Now it's like the best version of Cat is having him play the 5 offensively, which also means he has to play the 5 defensively. So it's like, I think it's a little bit more highlighted than that, but I agree with you. It's not like obviously Dante DiVincenzo was in that deal and they could use a Dante DiVincenzo on this team. But I agree with you that it's not like they traded Rudy Gobert for Cat or anything like that.
Right. Now, we touched on this a bit earlier about, we're coming up on, the All NBA awards, and players have to play in a certain number of games. I believe it's 65, I believe, in order to qualify for, clutch awards, All NBA, most improved MVP, all that stuff. And Jalen is close to being there, as well as Jalen Brown for the Boston Celtics. How much do you think that stuff plays into players, particularly Jalen Brunson, just, how bad does he want that?
Yeah, when we talked to him the other day, somebody had asked him about the 65 game. He's like, yeah, individually, like, that's something I wanted to get to, but my goal is to be completely healthy and do what I can to help this team win. So he gave the company answer, but it's certainly something that he wants to do. Like, he's a guy that's really grinded for a lot. Like, I know he was a top high school recruit, but he was undersized in college, ends up being a 2-time national champion, one of the best players in college, gets the NBA coming off the bench, second-round pick, ends up playing himself into a really good role in Dallas, and then gets a chance to run the show in New York. So it's like, he's a competitive dude. He's worked hard for all this stuff, and nothing was really given to him. So I understand wanting to get back for that. I would too.
Yeah.
But I also don't think Jalen is selfish enough to, like, he's going to just play and he's like 70%. He's not that type of guy. Like, if he's doing it because he feels like he's very, very close to 100%.
Yeah. And the thing that I find with players, particularly when they've had the kind of journey that Jalen has, and Jalen Brown to some extent as well, is that they realize that acknowledgement for good work is not a given. That when you are in position where you have played well enough to where your body of work is being talked about in those types of conversations, you want to give yourself the best opportunities possible to cash in on that, literally cash in on that, if need be. And I totally get that. I mean, James, you write a killer feature story and it's in an APSC contest, you want to win that thing.
Yeah, of course. No, 100%. Like, listen, we're all 20 years from now, or 15 years from now, 10 years from now, when those kids who are currently in high school are having discussions about who's a first ballot Hall of Famer, who's a second ballot Hall of Famer. They go to that basketball reference page and they look at those accolades. And listen, we in the moment, if Jalen doesn't reach 65 games, we in the moment know that Jalen is still one of the best 15 players in basketball. And if he played one more game, would have been all NBA, whatever team. You look 10, 15 years from now, there's no record of that unless you got an OG that was there to tell you, and they don't really want to hear what could have been, what might have been.
Right.
Getting those accolades helps build these legacies and who these people are as players. So I get it. Trust me, I get it.
Right. That and winning championships, which brings me to our next topic. As you mentioned, the Celtics, they're going to be hosting the Knicks next week. And it's, both by that point, pretty much both teams, I think their playoff position will be determined. But because, and you touched on this earlier, the Knicks have struggled against the top teams, not only in the East, but also the Western Conference as well. How important is a game like that on the eve of the playoffs for New York?
It depends on who's playing for Boston. I do think there is like a mental thing that it would benefit the Knicks to see them get a win over the Cavs and Celtics of the world. But I also think these guys are smart enough to know that, like, if Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum are sitting, or Mitchell and Mobley are sitting, that ain't the same. So it kind of, to me, depends on who's playing. If we get close to full lineups for both teams, and I think it's very important for the psyche. But I'm curious to see what those rosters and lineups look like in, what would that be, like 4 or 5 days from now?
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the narratives that's been out there, it seems like, man, there's like death, taxes, and Tibbs playing his guys too much. It seems like those are the givens in our society, apparently. And I'm looking at the minutes, and I don't know. I don't buy that the way it's been sold over and over and over again. What's your take on Tibbs and the whole minutes discussion?
This is my thing. And we talk to players, and every player that we've talked to except Mikal has kind of mentioned that they'd rather play more than less. And so if you're going to say Tibbs plays his guys too many minutes and they wear down, well, OG Anunoby's playing the best basketball of his career, and he's never played more minutes. So you have to talk about that, right? Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson, they didn't really miss games. So if you're looking at total minutes, Mikal hasn't missed a game this year. So he's going to play the most minutes in the NBA. And he's done it before he was in New York. Josh Hart has missed 3 games all year. You're going to play a lot of minutes when you don't miss games. OG Anunoby has missed, I think he had missed a week. That was it. You're going to play a lot of minutes when you only miss a week. You look at the minutes per game, they're still high up there, but Cats and Jalen are in the 20s. And listen, the only knock I have on the minutes thing is when they're up like 20 on a team for most of the game, and you look up and Mikal played 50 minutes or 40 minutes, right? It's like, okay, that's not necessary.
Right.
But if this team isn't blowing teams out of the water fairly that often, good, bad, or indifferent teams, they are in close basketball games more than they are blowouts, unlike Boston and Cavs, and the Cavs Cavs for most of the year, who have handled business early. The Knicks aren't really doing that. They're struggling against most teams, or having fights up against most teams. And also, you look at last year's team, Tibbs played his bench because he had a bench. This year, campaign has been solid. Deuce McBride has been good. You get past that, it ain't been the most, I know people are saying they think the bench is better than his. I don't see it. I don't. It's just been an inconsistent group. They really put all their resources into having a really good starting 5. Listen, if I was Tibbs and I'm looking down at the end of the bench and I'm only up 6, I might leave a couple guys out there for 2 or 3 more minutes. I don't blame them. I get it. But ultimately, it's I think people need to remember these guys haven't missed games. So other than Jalen this last month, their starters have been so healthy. And I'll knock on wood for their case, for their sake. But listen, when you don't miss games, you play a lot of minutes.
Absolutely. And then that's one of the things that, people, when they talk about Jason Tatum, for example, you almost have to basically lock him in a room for him to miss a game, unless it's a definite injury. He's not a big fan of load management at all. But speaking of the Celtics, they've been they've been one of, if not the best team in the NBA the last few years, won the championship last year. When you look at this Knicks team and you look at the Celtics, how do you see that matchup playing out if these two are to meet in the second round, which in all likelihood is going to happen?
I'm a big guy of you can only go off what you know. And we know that Boston is not just head and shoulders above the Knicks, but everybody that's not Cleveland and Oklahoma City. The way that they play, people think they just want to get up threes all the time. No, they want to get to the rim. It's like, okay, if we can't get to the rim against you, we'll shoot this three, and we got guys that can make it. And I think the most underrated team building thing that people don't talk about is having multiple ball handlers, multiple guys who can break defenders off the dribble and create an advantage. Boston has 4 on the floor at all times, most likely, with Drew, Jalen, Jason, and who am I missing?
You've got Porzingis.
You have Pritchard. Yeah, Porzingis. Yeah.
You're probably thinking of Derek White.
Derek White. There we go. Derek White. Yeah, that's how deep they are. I forgot about Derek White. And then you look at the Knicks. It's Jalen Brunson. He's the one guy you think can consistently break a defender off the dribble and create an advantage. And that's what separates Oklahoma City and Cleveland and Boston from the rest. They get these threes because they have guys who can break down defenses off the dribble, multiple guys, and then they have guys that you can kick out to and knock these shots down. So I think that's just the biggest difference. I think teams need to invest more in having multiple ball handlers, multiple guys who can create. Boston has done that. Oklahoma City has done that. Like, listen, Shea can do it. Jalen Williams can do it. Like they have some guys, and the Knicks just have one guy who's a natural ball handler / breaker down of defense, and Boston has multiple. And I think that's the biggest gap. And I want to say the Knicks get one out of respect, but they haven't even been close in these games. So especially so you find yourself in a dogfight in the first round with Pistons or Indy. I'm going to imagine Boston handles their business against whoever they play in the play-in. So a healthy, rested Boston team is going to be waiting for a banged-up Knicks team. That's not going to go pretty. That's why I think the Knicks really want Milwaukee, because I think they can handle them and get a little rest. But we'll see. Yeah, I just think Boston's ability to create shots for themselves and others is just otherworldly.
Yeah, absolutely, and we shall see soon enough. That's for sure. This, what James is talking about is very much in line with a piece you wrote recently for The Athletic, where you look at the Cavs Celtics is at a finals inevitability. Which again, I would encourage all our listeners to check that out on the Athletics website. James Edwards III. James, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, man. Anything for you. I appreciate you having me on, and I'll see you here in a few weeks.
Absolutely. And before we get out of here, just one more quick shout out to our good friends at Prizepicks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of CLNS Media Network. This is Sherrod Blakely for James Edwards III. This is the Big Three NBA podcast, and folks, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you.